Welcome to Show Up the Table. My name's Chance, and I'm here with my co-host Josh, and we are here to, of course, talk about board games. And you know what? Even more exciting is that today we're having a bit of a Grinch-style Christmas, and we're going to be complaining about some of our fellow board gamers at the table. But don't worry, it's all in good fun and everything. So we'll get to that towards the end of the episode here, but first we're going to kick things off with our Just Played list. And for that, I'm going to pass this over to Josh to talk about a game he just introduced to me tonight.
Yeah, so one we just played a little while ago is a two-player game that we've been kind of angling at playing for a while now. This one's been in the BGG top 100, really top of the pile for like war games for a decade or more. And that's going to be Twilight Struggle. So for me, just to give you kind of like the bottom line up front, I would say Twilight Struggle really lived up to the hype for me. I was a little worried going in that it might be, I don't know, showing its age a little bit or be a little bit just kind of like dry, or I don't know, just something I had some hesitancy going in is what I would say. And really it lived up to the expectations. I think like all the rave reviews, I think I saw a comment the other day on like a forum. It was like, I'll tell you this, like Twilight Struggle is just as good as it's ever been. And I would agree with that. I thought it was a fantastic game. Really kind of a tug of war between the USSR and the US through the Cold War. If you're not familiar with the game, which I have to imagine a lot of people are at this point. But it's a lot of interesting card play and kind of like spreading influence across the globe, and really just like going back and forth, taking points from one another, getting points. And I scored a lot in like bursts towards the end.
Yeah,
I think which kind of like carried me over the top. But there was a lot of back and forth, and we made it a few hours into the game before we ended, and ended up winning on one of the Euro scoring cards, which implies like an immediate end of the game. But we were pretty deep into it when that happened. And
you're in my late age. We made it pretty most way through the game.
I felt it was pretty tightly balanced, and there was a lot to love about it, but I'll let you kind of like give your impressions as well.
Yeah, so I was actually a little concerned about this game because, it's rated at a pretty heavy weight on BGG. And, at those high weights, I tend to become much more hesitant towards games because, like, I have flashbacks towards Lacerda, and I'm just like, Lacerda is just, to me, that's work. That's not a game, it's work to play Lacerda games. So I had some concerns just due to that. And I opened the rulebook, and it's like, this is like 42 pages long. Like, holy crap, like, what on earth do I do with this? But the rules are like 10 pages.
And actual rules, yeah.
They're written surprisingly well. I would say we played another GMT game, Just of Robin Hood, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more as we talk about Twilight Struggle. But I thought this was actually better written than Just of Robin Hood. Yep. Just because it's older, it's been around longer, so they had more
iterations on that rule book.
Exactly. So it was a lot easier to play than I expected, but it still had those road bumps, like when we first get going, right? Like we're like, okay, we know how to play this, and we do the first turn, like, how does this work? Like, what does this mean?
A lot of little questions about things.
Yeah, exactly. Just a lot of little things to clarify. But I felt like the rulebook was actually pretty well laid out, and like I don't know.
But you realize you can just ignore the back half.
Yeah. So overall, I think that weight was putting me off this game for a while, and I feel like that was that's not great because it was really, really good, and I don't feel like that weight was like that bad.
I thought it was a lot less complex than like the ratings would have led me to believe.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes when I think about weight on games on BGG, like I think of rules complexity, whereas I feel like Twilight Struggle falls in the category of just having depth. Like the game has a lot of depth to it, not a whole lot of rules complexity. So the weight is really tilted towards that depth of the gameplay versus the rules complexity in this one. I really like the aspect of this. It's basically your turn is just play a card, which I just love it when it's like, hey, on your turn, just play a card. You don't have to choose from like a menu of actions. You're just like, okay, here's the instructions on the card. You just play it, you do it, done. So I love games that do that, and Twilight Struggles it did a fantastic job with managing the events on the card. Like I always wanted to play the events on the card, especially those cards that had higher values on them. So like those higher value cards always had better events, and then those lower value cards they had events that were kind of like balanced with the OP, the operation points on it.
Yeah.
So I felt like there was always a good trade-off on that card selection, trying to decide like, oh, do I want to use this for this or do you use it for that? And the other card I loved about this was the fact that you're drawing from this common deck, and you have the other player's cards in your hand. So sometimes you have to play a card as like the operation points value to take like these other actions in the game. when you play the opponent's card and it benefits them in some way, they get to do the event. And it's just like, and sometimes your hand is just filled with those, and you're like, oh crap, like I need to do these operations points, but if I do this, that other player is going to get this benefit on this card. So I love that tension and that decision making in this game.
Nobody is like, as far as I mean, I was thinking as you were talking about that, because I really like that as well, that there's really just this one shared deck. We've played a ton of like asymmetric war games and 2-player dueling games, and I want to say in like almost every one, the decks are very like asymmetric. I can't think, Star Wars Rebellion, Dude More for Arrakis, War for the Ring, the list, just Robin Hood, Votes for Women, like the list goes on. You're playing with very like asymmetric decks, and it's very much like, this is your deck, this is my deck, you play your cards, I'll play mine, with very few exceptions. And in Twilight Struggle, you're sharing cards. You might get a full hand of cards with events that like mostly benefit the other player. And it's it's something I haven't really seen in like
trying to figure out
almost
how
any other game.
Trying to figure out how to work around that is like really interesting. It's like, oh well, so you still get a benefit of those cards when you play them, but you're like trying to figure out, oh well, maybe if I play this card that gives them a benefit in Africa, I can use my operation points over in Europe, and like it doesn't matter what they do in Africa. Yep. So you're like trying to balance out, like, is this event worth it to play or whatever?
Yeah, I would think things like, I have this card that's worth a lot of points or operation points, and it might score a chance like 1 victory point, but maybe it's better to like go ahead and get that out now and take advantage of the operation points rather than like let it sit in my hand and wait until it's like more gonna score him more points later. And you could burn cards through the space race, which was really interesting to kind of like get rid of like valuable cards for the other player. And it was really interesting just puzzling through like how to deal with like bad draws essentially.
And then the end game conditions, I want to call it, are really interesting in this too, because there's a couple ways the game can just end before the last turn. So if you make it to the end of the game, which we did not, because I got crushed. I got crushed once we entered the late age. But if you make it to the end of the game, you just basically do the scoring. It's like, well, whoever has the most points on the scoring track wins the game. But the other conditions are a little more interesting, where you have like, if one player just takes control of Europe, like they win the game immediately.
Yeah.
If one player reaches 20 points on the victory track, they win the game immediately, which Josh did, because he
the DEFCON track.
I'm a DEFCON. Like, so the DEFCON is like how close you are to thermonuclear war, right? And then if someone triggers thermonuclear war, they lose the game immediately. I feel like both players probably lose the game at that, but I thought these were all interesting things to keep tension in the game, and it really brought like this first game that we played. I figured out that you can't really just abandon a region, because I let Josh take
especially not Europe. But in any region,
I let you take the Middle East. I think I was just like, I can't really do anything here. You have like full control in here, and it's like really hard for me to do anything with this one. But then you all of a sudden, I was like, I knew you're gonna score a bunch of points when you get it. But you took that one, and you're like, I'm gonna score whatever. You scored like 12 points on that region, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to score Europe. And I was like doing poorly in Europe too, but I was like, I don't think it's like a risk here. But you scored enough to just take that victory. And it was like, son of a gun.
Well, it's like you come to understand, or at least what clicked for me was that like control really matters.
Oh, yeah.
As to just having influence and also having control over the battleground states. So if you get control over like all of the battleground states in a region, like that's huge points, like double digits. And you're really only trying to get to 20. So that kind of clicked for me like a little ways through, because initially I was just trying to spread influence across the map, and like this seems like a good way to at least score some points. But really, what matters is like getting those higher numbers and getting control over individual countries, and
So overall, just to I want to talk about a couple other games while we talk about this, but like Twilight Struggle, I really enjoyed our first play of this. This was probably the most depth in a war game that we've experienced, I would say. Like, you had the most strategy, and I felt engaged. Like, I think we played it for about 3 hours, and I was engaged the whole time. Like, I didn't feel like 3 hours. Yeah, exactly. It did not feel like 3 hours,
which is always a good sign.
Yep. So even with all those rules hurdles and stuff, I felt like it was a really good intro to this game, and I'm excited to revisit it, because it had a lot of strategy and depth to it, and I feel like the rules were a lot easier to internalize than even some of the bigger games that we played. Like Star Wars Rebellion, I've had more of a struggle internalizing those rules, and we played that one like 3 times now, right?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah. So
it's near the top for me as well, I would say. I think some games, like we've played some other GMT war games, so we played like a Jest of Robin Hood, and some others like that. I think this might be my favorite so far, just in terms of like I think you kind of got at this earlier, but it's like, there's a lot of depth to explore there, but it's not super hard to play. I'm not frequently referencing rules as much as I am in some of these other games.
And talking about just Robin Hood, like that's another one that I really enjoy. Our last play fell kind of flat with you being eliminated really fast.
I lost very early on.
But I do feel like even we played it twice now. Even in our second play, we were still struggling with the rules. We're like, oh, what happens when we do this? What happens when we do that?
Yeah.
Like I felt like Twilight Struggle was a little tighter. It was a little more refined. And Just Robin Hood, while fun, I want to revisit it. It was a little more I felt like the edge cases were harder to remember and harder to process during the game.
For sure. And I wonder like how much of that, like how often do games get the chance to just like evolve over a period of like decades? But like where like Twilight Struggle has been so popular for so long. And I think when I purchased this game, it was like maybe like the 6th edition or 7th edition or something like that. And I was just like, no wonder the rule book feels so polished and everything feels like very well thought out. There was never really a question that wasn't answered by the rule book, which I really appreciate. We played some games lately where I've had to really go digging into like forums and stuff like that to like figure out some like scenario ruling on like a specific card or something like that. Twilight Struggle feels very polished and very balanced in a lot of ways. And I wonder how much like Adjusted Robin Hood, even the version I have is like the second printing of Adjusted Robin Hood, and they've like made some like refinements and things like that. I just wonder how much like most games would benefit from the having like decades to be kind of like reprinted and reimagined to be streamlined.
Yep. Yeah. And then I do want to call out another game from not GMT, but I want to mention Boats for Women.
Feels really similar, yeah.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
That card play, the events on those cards, it doesn't have the action point system, but it does have some ways of kind of doing that tug of war across all the states in the U.S. It definitely has some similarity, whereas Twilight struggles across the world, right? The U.S. struggling with Russia, whereas Votes for Women is suffragists versus non-suffragists. And Votes for Women, though, is a much easier rule set. It is a lighter, a more breezy game. Still a pretty consequential topic. So, but I do.
It was great. I really loved it.
Yeah, yeah. But I do find that looking at these two, like I think that both of them have their plays. Like Twilight Struggle is that bigger, epic, kind of long game of just kind of going back and forth with the other player, and has some really good design elements. But like as a much quicker playing game, I really like Boats for Women.
Yep.
Like I still think that's going to land ahead of Twilight Struggle just due to like time and rules overhead.
Yeah.
But Twilight Struggle is still going to be an example high on my list. So.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like comparing apples and oranges where. Like every now, I think I mentioned this when we played it. It's like every now and then, like I love to sit down on like a Saturday afternoon or something and just get like one of these long epic games played, like War of the Ring or Star Wars Rebellion or Twilight Struggle. But the reality of the world is that like more often than not, you don't have like 4 hours to throw at a game, and so things like Dune War for Arrakis as opposed to War of the Ring. Things like Votes for Women as opposed to Twilight Struggle, but really come into focus and offer like something really, really intriguing and a lot of fun at like with really no opportunity cost. It's kind of like, it's just like I have a hard time comparing the two, like. Yeah, sometimes I want to play Star Wars Rebellion. Sometimes I want to play like Votes for Women, and it's just like it depends on like what kind of time you have to throw at it and what kind of mood you're in. We don't always get that ideal situation where we can play Twilight Struggle for 3 hours.
The only bad thing I'll say about Twilight Struggle is I feel like we should go on BGG and look up someone else's player reference, because I felt like the reference, while it looked nice initially, like the one in the box, it's like, oh, this looks like it has a lot of information on it. It had none of the information we needed. Like I rarely looked at the player reference. I was like, at the end of this, I was like, who wrote this?
It felt a little bit short of like what you actually, like there was some good information there, but it stopped just short of like answering all my questions.
It would tell you how to do a coup, but it doesn't tell you what happens after you do a coup. Yeah. And it's like,
when you raise the DEFCON level or like the military level, it was a little bit. The player references looked nice, but were left a little bit to be desired. Which is funny because like the reverse side of the player reference was it was just a list of cards.
Yeah,
I don't know what that was for. Maybe if you're like ultra competitive and you've memorized like what all the cards do, and you want to see a list of them broken down by like what stage of war they're active in, I don't know.
I don't know.
I personally would have dedicated that to like a slightly more verbose explanation of like how actions work. But I, you know, like as we mentioned earlier, the rules were really just like 10 pages out of the 40-page rule book, and a lot of the additional stuff was like flavor text and talking about the historical significance and things like that. So like stuff was easy to look up, but the player reference, I agree, that was not it.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for Twilight Struggle. So, if you can't tell, both Josh and I are a big fan of this. We, of course, love our two-player dueling games.
Yep.
Like, that is a genre that we thoroughly enjoy.
We played a lot of them, so I would take us seriously when we say it's good. It means it's good.
We're experts now.
I played a lot of two-player games. A lot of lane battlers. Yeah. If you want to know about a lane battler, like I think we're authorities on the matter at this point. Get Dracula versus Van Helsing.
Ooh, yeah, that fantastic.
I saw a post today of somebody posting like their Christmas gifts, and they had a bunch of two-player games, and they were all like ones that we've taught. They got like for Christmas, they got like Dracula versus Van Helsing, Agent Avenue.
Oh man,
I don't know, like a bunch that we've played.
So we know it's just proof that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, they were definitely listening to us.
All right, you know, with that, I think we can transition into our next game. We're actually gonna this is a good transition into our other big one that we played, and we've already talked about this game on the podcast. I think this is our first episode. We talked about it.
We did. Yeah, we talked about it early.
We got another player of War of the Ring in on, and I want to just mention this. Probably don't have much to say on it the second time, but you know,
sure.
I feel like it was still a very epic experience. Like it's still War of the Ring is this really big just experience with the going in the Middle Earth. One of you playing as the Fellowship of the Ring, the other person playing as Sauron. You know, the evil guy trying to stop the Fellowship. And this time we switch sides so we can both kind of learn the game a little bit better and have a better experience on hopefully that, you know, third and fourth play. Well, actually, I don't think we ever had a bad experience with this.
It's no bad experience, but I would say it jumped up a level.
Yeah.
And we also incorporated Lords of Middle-earth.
Oh, yeah, the expansion.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like it helps to have a deep understanding of like how that fellowship operates, right?
Yeah.
Like when you were playing as the Sauron the first play, I felt like how the fellowship operated was a little hidden from you, and you're just like, I don't know.
I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a little bit before, but like Pagan Fate of Roanoke, another one of our favorite like asymmetric dueling games. We've talked about this maybe with like Star Wars Rebellion. It really benefits you to play both sides.
Yes.
Once you've like, if you're really invested in the game, you need to play like both the good guys and the bad guys, and just kind of get a feel for like what they can do.
Yeah, I feel like it's totally acceptable to have like a favorite side to play.
Sure.
Like in Pagan, you know, like I love playing the hunter because mainly I'm terrible as the witch. Like I'm just absolutely atrocious at it.
I thought you were pretty good.
But I still feel like it was worthwhile playing the witch that way, deeper understanding how it plays. I do want to play the witch again, but
yeah,
I feel I get very stressed.
Pagan more so than the others. I feel like you really have to play both sides. Yeah. It is highly asymmetric just in like the actions you can take and things like that. But yeah, even in War of the Ring, you know, I thought it was nice to play as like the other side and just kind of like as the Fellowship in my case, and just get a better feel for how they operate. And for me, I don't know how you feel, but just like earlier, I thought Dune War for Arrakis like highly it outclassed War of the Ring for me by a lot. I think it still does. I think I still prefer it if we kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, sometimes you just don't have hours and hours to throw at a game. Like I might not have 4 hours to play War of the Ring. Doing War for Arrakis, much more like streamlined experience.
Our last game took like what, an hour and a half? Doing War for Arrakis.
Yeah. War of the Ring is just like fearful. Like it's epic. It's a little bit clunky at times. It shows its age some, but it's still like, you know, after a second play, I think still just like up there with the rest of them as far as like enjoying it. I thought it was really entertaining. I made it all the way to like the foothills of like Mount Doom, like starting to climb the mountain.
I had like 2 spaces left, and like that's where I'm.
It was last night. It was the last time we played, and I just felt like yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, how did it change for you like between plays?
To be honest, I feel like it probably didn't change as much for me. I felt like it was still, I had that epic experience with the Fellowship. I really liked playing the Fellowship where you had that hidden movement and you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to I feel like a Sauron, you have one goal, right? Like you have one goal of just like stopping the other player. You have those hunts that's going on. You're trying to make those decisions on how much hunt die to contribute and stuff. Which don't get me wrong, I felt like that was still really engaging. Like I really enjoyed that part of it of trying like debating. Oh, how many hunt dice do I want to commit? Like one time I committed like a bunch of hunt dice, but then I rolled and I had to commit more, and I was like, oh my goodness, all my actions are gone. So I feel like it has some really good decisions there. But I do feel like that fellowship with that little bit of hidden movement, the little hidden information going on, and then choosing when to like split off the characters.
Yeah.
And then while I've not read the Lord of the Rings books, because I find them they're very dry and logged to me. Like they're very hard to read. Watch the movies. I do feel like a lot of that lore kind of comes out in the gameplay because like as you play the Fellowship, you learn that I actually want to kind of like separate off the Fellowship as fast as possible.
Never benefit.
Like you want to send these people out and do their own things like as soon as possible, and that's like bringing back to the movies where it's like, oh, these people are leaving the party to go and like recruit Rohan and recruit Gondor or whatever.
Yeah.
And like that's what you're doing in the game, and it's like amazing that it's like doing those things that.
And I felt like they kind of recognized that in the expansion a little bit, where they like almost incentivize you to break up the Fellowship earlier. Like you could actually start with the Fellowship fractured and have like your various heroes and like different nations and things like that. So I thought the expansion added a lot. I did a lot of reading.
I do agree.
There's a lot of expansions for War of the Ring. At least like 4. And the one I read the most positive things about was Lords of Middle Earth, and that's kind of what we went with. And I thought it added some really nice elements, just like some variability to a few characters, some new characters, and the increased powers of like the 3 elven rings. There was a lot to like about it, and it didn't introduce like too much like rules overhead, which I appreciated.
Yeah,
because it's already like a very dense game. And for all of our talk about Twilight struggle and being able to easily look up like resolutions to questions and things like that, War of the Ring is a lot more.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules to look through. There's a lot of edge cases and like specific scenarios related to like particular characters and things like that. So it's very much like it's a time sink, and you have to kind of be in it to really play it. So it's one I don't envision us getting to the table as often, but when we do, I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a really epic experience, and it's kind of like it's unmatched by like 90% of other games I've played in terms of that, like being able to tell a story afterwards and just kind of that overall feel is hard to replicate.
I'll mention that I still will prefer Dune War for Arrakis over War of the Ring, but I do enjoy the epic experience of War of the Ring.
I think I agree with you. Yeah, I think Dune is, I think I said this last time we talked about this, and it's that Dune obviously War for Arrakis takes a lot of inspiration from War of the Ring. And you can tell that, like when we were talking about Twilight Struggle, and they've had like 6 versions to kind of iterate and things like that. Like I feel like Dune very much like learned some lessons from previous iterations of like War of the Ring and things like that, and is better for it. So I think it's still probably edges it out for me as well. But I'm happy to play both.
Cool. Now let's move into a couple other 2-player games that we played. As I mentioned, experts on 2-player games, so we got that. That's our sweet spot.
That's the notch.
I picked up a game on a bit of a whim. I got it for like $9, I think. It's one of those games where I threw in to get that free shipping threshold. It's important.
Nerds purchase,
and it was associated with a game that I feel like we both enjoyed in the past.
Yeah,
and this was called Cosmic Encounter Duel. Now, I'm going to mention that this game does not have the best reviews, especially compared to Cosmic Encounter, like its bigger brother,
Yep.
And the art, I think, is kind of atrocious in Cosmic Encounter Duel. I do not enjoy it anywhere near it. I like the grittiness of Cosmic Encounter, like the weird style art, that 90s style art.
Yeah.
Whereas like Cosmic Encounter Duel took like more of a cartoony approach to it. Yeah, I just do not enjoy that style as much. But this game, for getting like kind of not great reviews and being on a ridiculous sale, I had a lot of fun with Cosmic Encounter Duel. I thought it was fantastic.
I'm glad you picked it up. I would say my initial impressions were similar to yours, where like I saw this at one of our local game stores like frequently, and it's not that expensive at full price. But like of course, like when you see games in person, you're like, okay, like what are the reviews on this? I look it up and I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't get that. It's in like the lows. Yeah, I forget what it is on Board Game Geek, but I was just like, oh, these, people must know what they're talking about. Like it's not good. And, it does look cartoony. I'm not the biggest fan of the art myself, but, yeah, then you mentioned you had purchased it and you got it like super cheap, and I was like, oh, I'm actually like excited to play this, and like come to find out, it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would say I can see why some people probably don't like it. The combat resolution is a little finicky. You choose like these tactics tiles, you choose like a planning card, then you resolve them in order. Like there's this step process for it. It's not that complicated, but it's just a little long and finicky to deal with. Yeah. But it still brought out some of that chaos of Cosmic Encounter. It had these ambassadors that you could collect. So both of us started with an alien, kind of like Cosmic Encounter. But in this one, instead of starting with them face down and revealing, which is probably like one of the best parts of Cosmic Encounter, is revealing that alien. So this one, you actually start with both of your own races face up. You know what the other person's power is. But over the course of the game, you can collect these ambassador cards. And those ambassadors, there's 3 of them, and you get those face down. And then at a certain point during a conflict or whatever, you can reveal that ambassador and reveal its power. That's kind of that exciting alien reveal, basically. Yeah. So they kind of carried that over from Cosmic Encounter. Then I enjoy the conflict resolution. I enjoy the tactics of trying to choose that attack tile versus the defense style. So you're eliminating or maybe defending your ships on that one planet, and then you still have the warp that's out there. Overall, I felt like they did a lot of things really well, turning the Cosmic Encounter into a 2-player game. Like, yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought it was a faithful recreation of Cosmic Encounter as a 2-player game. And, while I would probably prefer Cosmic Encounter just for the added, like, craziness of having, like, 4 to 6 factions as opposed to 2, they did a really good job of recreating that feel. And, there's, I would say so maybe a little bit more complex in some ways. There's just like a little more like going on. Not like a complex game by any stretch, but, yeah, I thought they did a good job of like turning that in. I'm always curious when they come out with these like dual versions of games. Like, how are you going to take, I don't know, Azul or Aquatica?
Azul, don't want to try it. Azul Duel. I'm like, why would you make a duel? But, like, okay, moving on.
Yeah, like, how do you take this, like, beloved game? In Cosmic Encounter, like, we talked earlier about War of the Ring and Twilight Struggle. You want to talk about games that have been around for a while. Like, I think Cosmic Encounter's been around longer than both. So, like, yeah, to take that and make it into a 2-player game, I thought they did a fantastic job, and it's a fun one for me. We might end up playing it this evening. I think it's one Chance brought over. It's one I've been itching to kind of play again. And if you like the wackiness of Cosmic Encounter and the different factions available and just like the weirdness of it all and the sci-fi theme, like, I think it's a hit.
It's just a fun little chaotic experience. Like,
yeah. So I'm not going to rate it like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but, it's very fun. And, as you mentioned earlier, how much did you get it for?
$9.
Yeah, you can like routinely find it for something like that. And
it's been on sale on Game Nerds recently for $4.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning, that's what I was thinking of when I asked you that. It was like, I thought it was even cheaper, but yeah, for like $5 or $10, like, shit, man. It's pretty fun. I've spent a lot more money on games I liked a lot less. I'll say.
Agreed. So that do it for Cosmic Encounter Duel. Overall, this is a surprise. I don't understand why people are hating on so much. I feel like
I'm curious to go read some reviews now that I've played it and have my own thoughts on it. And yeah, sometimes I've learned more the more games I play. I'll say I used to live and die by like the Board Game Geek ratings of games, right? Yeah. Like if this is rated like an 8, then it must be fantastic. And I feel like I just slowly learned as I played like more and more games and got into like the 100 and stuff like that. But like, yeah, like the crowdsourced rankings are nice, but they favor heavier games. They favor, I think, like Euro style games,
less chaotic games.
And I just like more and more just come to understand. And I think this is probably true for a lot of people, just like what I like and, what I think value in games. And it's a little bit different, which for everyone it is. That's not just like a neat thing. But yeah, this was one where
this will trigger a whole new. Let's not design on this, but like a whole new concept of just kind of the rating of kind of Euros versus the chaotic games. I feel there's probably a rating where when I look at a Euro game like Agricola, I don't love Agricola.
I know
but I appreciate
I like Agricola. For the people out there on Board Game Geek.
But you see, as a game design though, it's hard to rate that one low for you. Because I'm like, I appreciate like the design of this game, like it's well done. Whereas I can see someone that plays Cosmic Encounter or Cosmic Encounter Duel and just be like, this is chaos and stupid, and they're gonna rate it low. So I feel like even though I don't like Agricola, I'm gonna give it a decent rating because I'm like, it's well designed.
Yep.
Whereas someone that plays Cosmic Encounter Duel that doesn't like it's gonna rate it this way lower than I would rate my lowest rating. So that might skew really
different ways. Like people value different things in games, and like what might be really interesting and fun to one person might be like total garbage to another, which
there's
I think is fair. We should do an episode on that.
We got a whole that's a whole new topic. I think.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our another 2-part game that we got to follow up play in, and this is another one I own that I've really been enjoying just because Jenna Felly is a fascinating designer. Just
really good.
Oh man. This is the Mirroring and Mary King. This is one that most people probably haven't heard of. It definitely doesn't get a lot of attention. We played this one. I think this is our third play now.
3, yeah, and 2 of them being like very close to one.
Yes, we played
the first one. It's like far back, and we're
Yeah.
feeling out the rules, and then we got to play twice, like in pretty quick succession, which I thought was interesting.
I feel like this one's really cool because it has the feel of a lane battler, but instead of a lane, you're fighting over this 3x3 grid, 3x3 grid. I think it is. No, 3x4 grid.
4, yeah, 3x5.
So you're fighting over this 3x4 grid of this portrait of Mary King. And one person's playing as Mary King, one person's playing as the ghost of Mary King. And basically the theme is that Mary King went to Scotland or Ireland or something, and essentially one of her ancestors was like, oh, you'd be a good body to take over so I can like join the living world again. So that ghost person is like trying to take over Mary King, and essentially you're having this battle for your mind.
Yeah.
And the human player, the Mary King player, is trying to like maintain control of the mind, and the ghost player is trying to take over control of the mind. And you're doing this by flipping over that 3x4 grid of tiles. One side's the ghost of Mary King, and one side is Mary King. So it just has this really cool system where it kind of feels like a lane battler, but it's very different than a lane battler.
Yeah.
You're playing over the course of a week, or 5 days, Monday through Friday, and the day of the week determines how many control cards you can play, which are the ones that tend to flip those tiles over. Then you can play as many power cards as you want. But you also have the side deck, a side set of cards called your ideas, which you can pay for from your mind, which is like your main draw pile. And this is just a ton of terms I'm throwing out there.
The terminology gets a little confusing, but at its core, you have like your draw pile, your discard pile, and your ideas, which are like a market to buy from.
But I love that the terminology brings out the theme so much.
That
your draw pile is called your mind. Like this is your resilience. This is your life force, basically. If your mind is gone, you're eliminated. Then you have your memory. Your memory is those things that you played from your mind that you've already lost. Like those are the cards that are gone. But you can retrieve things from your memory. There's ways to get those back. And then the idea cards, like just those ideas that you have pop up in your head. The other player can actually take control of those ideas. And like there's just some really cool systems in here. I just find it so fascinating. Like it's super unique. What do you think of this game, Josh?
I really like it. I will admit, when you told me about it or like introduced it to me, I was like, what the hell is it? It's from the woman that created Cosmic Frog, which I love. So I'm like already interested. And he was like describing the theme to me, and it's like one of us is like the ghost of this woman, and one of us plays as the woman herself. And there's sort of like this area control thing where you're trying to like dominate the grid of squares to like possess or unpossess Mary King. And then, I had a blast like the first time I played it. The second time I played it was like quite a bit later. So I was kind of like reabsorbing rules and things like that. But the third time, I think it really clicked for me in terms of like understanding like the space that you're playing in, where you're kind of doing this area control thing. You'll have to talk about how you won in this game. But you're doing this area control puzzle, but you're also doing like a hand management, like deck management puzzle as well, where you're trying to keep your I'll probably butcher this in terms of like endgame scoring, but like there's this combination of like area control on the 3x4 grid, and also how many cards you have left in your discard pile, which is
in your mind.
Your draw pile, which is your mind. Your memory is your discard pile. Like Chance mentioned, like there's some terminology in there that can be a little confusing the first time you play it. Yeah. But like it really lends itself well to the theme, and it makes a lot of sense on subsequent plays.
Yeah.
For me. So yeah, it took a little while to click, but when it clicked, it clicked. But you're trying to reconcile this like hand management and draw pile management along with the area control puzzle on the 3x4 grid. And yeah, it's gotten better every time I've played it. I really enjoy this one. I liked it the first time I played it, but was mostly just trying to like wrap my head around the decision space. If you know this game well, I think you could teach it really easily.
Yeah.
It's like pretty quick to teach. And yeah, like I feel like it's pretty well balanced. The asymmetry between the two decks was kind of interesting, and how you can I don't know if we talked about this, but you could actually steal cards from the other person's ideas, which is like their market of buy cards. So you can take those and kind of make them your own. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. I think it's a really cool game, and I just want to play more Genofele games. Like I said, I love Cosmic Frog. I like it better than the Mary King game. I'm sorry, the mirroring of Mary King.
Yeah.
Cosmic Frog's probably my favorite, but I also really liked the lesser Houses of Duer, which I thought was good. And then I think the mirroring of Mary King is another hit. So like I would play any Genofele games. Jenna, if you're out there and listening, send us some prototypes. We'll throw you a positive review. But no, she's a fantastic designer, and I really like everything I've played by her.
Way to compromise our ethics, and I find Jess on right out of the gate here. Yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, I did the wink and the little whatever that hand signal is. Yeah, I was just joking.
Yeah, super fun one that I've had a blast playing so far.
Yeah, it's a good game.
So last one we're going to talk about for our main topic here is going to be a game that Josh recently got, and we may have talked. I don't remember if we talked about this, but let's.
We may have mentioned it as like something we're excited to play. I'm going to preface this by saying we've played this like once, and I want to play it more. But that's going to be Thief's Market. So Thief's Market is actually a recreation or a re-implementation of another game of the same name that came out a while, maybe like 10 years ago. So this, I crowdfunded this. It came in like, a few months ago. We got the chance to play it. I really liked it. Spoiler alert. But yeah, Thief's Market is kind of it employs a mechanic that I really like, which is I split, you choose. I know Chance is a big fan of that as well. So like Hanamakoji,
Agent Avenue.
It's something that I find like underutilized. It's something that I really enjoy, and I don't see a lot of. I talked about like bag building on a previous episode about like Lightning Train, and it falls into that same bucket of just like mechanics that I want to see more of, that I really enjoy. Thief's Market, really it's a dice chucker. It's a very casual game. I would compare it to something like, I think it's a nice iteration on like Splendor or one of the Century games or something like that, where you're kind of like rolling this big handful of loot dice and then kind of splitting it up and choosing like which loot dice you want to take. I believe around, and so essentially like, we roll like 8 dice or whatever it is. You take what you want, the next person takes what they want. They can also steal from the previous player, and so on until everyone has like got their loot dice in front of them. So like there's a neat decision space where like you can take some really advantageous dice, but you're almost certainly going to get them like stolen from you. And then you're kind of doing this other thing that reminded me of like a game Chance has or had, which is a Furnace, where you're getting a bunch of converter cards. You're like buying cards from a market, almost like Splendor or Furnace or something like that. And then you get to like run your gems or your stolen loot through that converter and convert that into like victory points and money and other like resources and things like that. So I had a blast with it. I'm curious to play it some more. My one complaint, if I had to give one, would be that I felt like once you got like a bunch of converters in front of you, same problem I have with like Furnace or something like that, which is why I mentioned it, is it tends to slow down.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking like, okay, like what's the optimal thing for me to do? And it gets a little bit bogged down in that. I'm curious to see if more plays kind of fix that issue, like once you're more familiar with the rules and things like that. But ultimately, I thought it was a fun iteration on Splendor, which I'm a big fan of. It was a gateway game for me, like one of the ones that got me into the hobby. And I think it's kind of like a nice, like it's a slightly meatier version of that. And one that, I don't know how widely available it is right now, or like how many, like when I got it, there were barely any reviews. It was one of the lone reviews on Board Game Geek. So yeah, it's definitely worth taking a look at Thief's Market, and I think they're actually crowdfunding some new games now, so maybe worth a look at those as well. What did you think?
Yeah, I actually don't have a lot to add to what you said. Overall, I would strong comparisons to Splendor has and then has that little converting engine that you have going. And as you mentioned, like I did feel the game start to bog down as people started getting more and more cards.
Yeah,
And that's where the game it almost overstays its welcome. It's right at that edge. It's kind of it's in between, kind of being a little 2-1, but it's not like yeah.
It might make its way into a sell pile. I'm curious how like future plays go, but
I do feel like it has a really good set of mechanisms, like you said, that ice what you choose. That's really fun. I like the fact that you can seal the girl's dice, you roll dice, put them back in the center. You're taking there's a little bit of a push your luck element to it with when you take dice and like risk rolling a die and getting it back in the center. So it has some just a really nice design, but it does get a little slow towards the end. The first round is a little confusing because no one has any idea what's going on. Second round was like everyone's figured out, but then by that last round you're like okay, let's be done with this.
Yeah, and I think when we get into our Grinch segment and we start talking about like player behaviors and things like that, I think that's really what I'm getting at is like if you play this with the wrong crowd, if you play this with someone who's like AP prone or like wants to really make sure they make the optimal move and like slows the game down, like this game will like slow. It's like molasses at that point. So it really depends who you play with. I would say it's very group dependent. If you can kind of like set the tone. I try to like set ground rule, try to say up front, like, hey, maybe we won't all play this optimally and like we just like keep things moving and then you're good. But
yeah. And actually, I think that is a fantastic transition right into our main segment, our Grinch Christmas, complaining about other players. Now, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, this is good-hearted. You know, like I have had some of these issues while playing, but I honestly think it's important to kind of revisit your experience with games and understand if you didn't have a good time with the game, like why didn't you have a good time? Like there's other players, and also did you ruin someone else's experience with the game?
That's a good question. Is like maybe we complain about ourselves a little bit. Maybe we identify like a behavior. It can be something we do sometimes that like, oh, I'm guilty of this. Yeah.
And then sometimes, especially as we're getting into this board game review space, you know, the people you play a game with can really influence that game. A really good game can just fall flat with the people that you play with, whereas like a really bad game can be amazing if you have the right group with it, right?
Yeah. So what did we talk about like last time? We talked about Demoniac. Maybe people remember that. Like Demoniac, very group dependent.
Yes.
You could play that. You could play Demoniac with the right group of people, and I would call that like a 9 out of 10. You could play it with the wrong group of people, and then maybe it falls to like a 4.
And I honestly feel that this is a topic that is maybe a little more valuable toward as someone that's been in the hobby a little longer. I like reading these ones just to understand the other issues players deal with. Whereas when I was new in the hobby, I kind of wanted to know a little more about these issues and understand like why these dynamics are falling flat, especially when I was introducing games to players. So when you're kind of growing and trying to find your new group, understanding these things that maybe that you might even be doing that could be turning other people off, or that maybe you could be upsetting other players without even knowing it. That's another part. Yeah. I think is important. So
yeah, I think it's good to keep an open mind about that too, and like be cognizant of like, oh, I might be doing this thing, and you know.
So with that being said, I think we can dive into this topic and hopefully no hurt feelings here, right? Yeah. We're all here to play board games.
Positive at the end of the day. Play board games to have fun.
So I just have 3 that I want to eliminate off my list. I don't even want to chat about these all that much because I feel like they're the least interesting ones to chat about. We're probably going to talk about the top one a little bit as we go through this. But let's just knock off sore loser. That's just no fun. No one likes a sore loser.
Yeah.
I've been with a person that has literally started yelling and got out of the game and like has stormed out of the room because they lost the game. That is no fun.
Yeah, no need to be that invested in a game. You should always be trying to win.
Yep.
Don't
depend
have
on
a tantrum. Yeah. If you don't.
Next up, just cheating. You know that one's out the door, right? You're
cheating. Yeah. Unfortunately, one I have seen in practice a couple times.
Yeah.
Like game nights and things like that. I don't know that there's a lot to say about it other than
that's so bad.
Yeah. If you're cheating, like nobody wants to play with you. That's terrible. You shouldn't stand for it.
Now, one that we'll probably touch on a little bit as we talk about the other ones is going to be the most common one that we hear about is analysis paralysis. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one specifically just because I feel like it's so common, and it's one of those traits that there can be a couple different reasons for it. Like, I feel like we played Battle of the Divas a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
And I felt
There's a
like,
lot of AP.
well, I thought I was having,
that.
yeah, there's a lot of AP available, but I felt like I was taking a little while, but I was actually just a little fatigued that night. I was like, because I slept like 4 hours the night before, and it was taking me, I was looking at my cards like, oh crap, what did I want to do? And it was just one of those situations where I felt like the other player could be interpreting as analysis paralysis, where I was just like, I'm struggling to figure out like anything right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like you can fall in that category. The style of analysis paralysis I tend to not like, or I tend to have a little less patience for, is that person that is trying to optimize, like, oh, I can get 1 point here or 2 points here, or maybe an extra 1 point later on if I do this action, and like that over optimization. That's the analysis paralysis that really starts to frustrate me. But someone that's either just struggling with the game and they need some help with it, or they're just like tired and they're like, oh, I can't deal with this tonight. Like I give them a little more grace than that person that's just doing that over optimization.
Sure.
Paralysis.
I tend to call myself out on it when I notice it. It's like,
Sorry, AP.
yeah, sorry, I'm taking forever. Like, let me like just make a decision and speed up. And not every move, like we said earlier, like it's great to like try to be winning. Like you should be competitive and like want to win. But if you're like slowing the whole game down for everybody else, it's a pain in the ass. And like one thing I've observed in myself is like AP for me will trigger like other bad board game behaviors. Like I'll have my phone out and like, just get distracted and like, oh, it's my turn, that kind of thing. Where like, yeah, I AP is one I really don't like. That's a big red for me. And so yeah, it partially because it does like take me out of the game and get me like focused on like other things.
I think
Shouldn't be
it
focused
can
on.
break games fall flat.
Yeah,
that's one of those issues.
All right, for sure.
So let's move on. I think these ones will be. This is in no specific order, not rated or anything like that. It's just I made a list. Josh, you can add to this list or comment on the ones that I have. I think I've probably covered a lot of the ones that you would probably have anyways.
Yep.
But I'm going to kick things off with one that just really irks me, especially because I teach a lot of board games. Josh has been teaching a decent number of board games recently. And, when you bring out a board game to a group, you want it to win. Like, you're bringing it out because you want people to enjoy it. So you're trying to do your best of, like, doing that teach, getting people into the experience and being like, I'm trying to give you guys the tools available so you can enjoy this game.
It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
Teaching games.
So one that really bothers me is complaining about having no idea what you're doing once the game starts. Like on a first play, I had multiple people that I played with in the past that are just like, I had no idea what's going on.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on.
Your fault. Subtly applying it's your fault.
It's just one of those things where I'm just like, do you need help? Like I'm trying to make sure you have the experience. He's like, no, I know all the rules. I don't need any help. And it's just I don't know what the best move is. I'm like, just play the game.
Just do something. Well, I will say, especially like the first time you play a game, this is near like a point of irritation for me. Is like nobody knows what the optimal move is. Nobody knows what they're doing. Really, like you should know like what your options are, maybe to some extent. But like, yeah, you're not like the first time you play a game, you're not playing optimally. I feel like that's a given, and I feel like I'm bridging into other like negative behaviors that.
That's like a lot of
yeah.
This bridges into that category of just I feel like this is one of those behaviors that might not come off as negative, but for the person that explained the rules, it can be very hurtful. Like it can be upsetting to them because they're just like, oh, they're not having a good time. Like I was doing my best to make sure you had a good time, and now you're not having a good time, and now that all that pressure is on me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those comments that I feel like is sure you don't know what you're doing, but just no one knows what they're doing. Keep that to yourself. Don't harm your rules explainer. If you need help with your term, ask your rules explainer. They're there to help you.
I'd give them some grace. Like teaching games is stressful. It's hard. Like like I said earlier, it's a very thankless job. So like you spend a lot of time if you're doing it right. Like you're spending a lot of time reading rule books, watching videos, watching playthroughs, and things like that. And then it's like, yeah, you go to show people the game, and people are like, either their like eyes are glazed over, or they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, how does this work? And just like, I would say in general, just like giving some grace to the person who took the time to learn the game and wants to like teach it to you to like actually do that. And yeah, I've been in the same position. Like we played at a charity event, like a game-a-thon thing recently, and I taught this game that just went like I spent all this time watching videos and like playthroughs and all this stuff, reading the rule book, and turns out we like pulled the game out. I just like was you start getting questions.
Finally, gets like
you're like, how does this work? Like, how does that work? How does this work? And then like Yeah, it's like give your like rules teacher some grace. They put a lot of time into it. Usually, as like the person playing the game, like you probably haven't invested any time in learning the game, which like is fine. But if you're gonna have like very negative reactions to like maybe you should have learned the game a little bit too. If you like expect me to know everything, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I think teaching games is hard. I think it's stressful, and I think it's like an acquired skill. So just like giving some grace to people as they do that, I think can go a long way to like making things run smoother. There's nothing worse than like when you're teaching a game and somebody asks you a question, you realize you don't know the answer, and you're like frantically like scanning the forums and like scrolling through the rule book, and you're like, shit, like I don't know what you do in that situation. And yeah, to me that's just like it's a stressful undertaking. You really have to like put yourself out there.
All right. And let's move on to the next one. This one really bothers me. This is the player that is always trying to find loopholes or breaking the game. So I'm going to call it an example on this one. This one actually ties into another example later on. But Tokyo Highway Rainbow City has these platforms that you can place down. And Tokyo Highway Rainbow City, this is one where you're placing popsicle sticks in cars. Really, this is supposed to be a fun little dexterity game for players. And there's one piece that's a platform where people can put buildings. And the rule is like if a player gets to place a platform, they get to place it wherever they want. I had a player that was like, so I can place it here. I'm like, yeah, you can place it there, whatever. And then I can place it here. Yeah, you can place it there, whatever. And then he's like, on the other side of the table, that is not where anyone would play. He's like, so I can place it over here. Like, just place it. Just put it wherever you want. Just be done with this. Like, I'm done with you. Move on. Yeah. And he's like, just trying to figure out what are the edge cases of the rules. And he just places it on the edge of the table where no one can play. And it's just, you're not going with the spirit of the game. You're just trying to break the game, and instead of having fun with it, you're just like trying to ruin the experience. No, it's not. I'm getting frustrated. Just man. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think on this one?
I feel like when you sit down to play games together, you're kind of entering this like
magic circle.
Yeah, it's like sacred agreement that we're all gonna have fun, have a good time, and like do this thing, and we're gonna go by like the rules that are set out by the game creators or whoever. Maybe you've house ruled it, I don't know, but you're gonna like be in that rule set. And yeah, I mean, I've noticed that behavior, and it is annoying. Like we already talked about like teaching games, but when you just get these like off the wall questions about like, can I do this or that, and it's just like, no.
This moves on to this comment I had under this one, and that's becoming the rules lawyer, like someone trying to understand all the rules. I literally just make up rules sometimes. I've gotten better at it. Like as I touch more games, I've realized that looking things up in the rule book can like just crush a game experience. Yeah. So a lot of times I just make the executive decision on the spot. The other players don't know it. I'm just like, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't do that. Like whatever I think is going to be best for this situation.
Yeah, like is everybody okay with this? Like then we'll do that. Yeah. You know, like there's no need to drag on for 15 minutes trying to figure something out if like we're all in agreement on like a suitable path forward. I totally agree with that one.
You know, on the same topic here, I think I have one that I'm going to let you talk to a little bit more, and this is not engaging with the game on its terms. Yeah. And this is, so I have Cosmic Prog as an example because if players don't attack each other, it just turns into a little spatial scoring puzzle. Super boring. I think you had an experience with a game called Western Legends on this.
Oh, man.
I upset Josh with this question.
What? Yeah, I did not know about this going into this. Western Legends, I think, is like a really interesting game. I think it's a really fantastic game, but I think in order to enjoy Western Legends, you really need to engage with it on its own terms. And I probably like I could count on one hand the number of times I've gotten like tilted playing a game, like freaking out or just being like, just like losing your cool, I guess. It's something I don't like, and I did it myself. But yeah, just like being able to engage with the game on its own terms. I played Western Legends with a group, and there was a lot of trying to optimize and like how can I score like the most points? Like approaching it is almost like a Euro game puzzle where you're trying to figure out how you score the most points. And like maybe and if you're not familiar, Western Legends is kind of like this US like Western sandbox game where you can play. There's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like you can advance on these tracks to be either like good or bad, like morale.
And they did some outlaws and cowboys and
Yeah, like do I want to be a lawman? Do I want to be like a renegade and like rob other players and things like that? And it's really like I think with the right group, to our earlier point about like things being group dependent, I think this is like a fantastic game. But yeah, the folks I were playing with just got really into like optimizing score and went into this strategy of like one player who ended up winning the game just kind of like focused on mining for gold and buying upgrades that allowed them to mine for gold. And usually the counter to that would be like robbing the player and being like a bad guy. And I felt like I was the only one that really like went down that path. Like, hey, I'll give up some victory points to be a bad guy and like put a target on my back to like try to balance the game out a little bit. Others were like, like I don't score as many points as a bad guy. Like I think like the most optimal path forward would be to be like a good guy like everyone else and just like go mine for gold nuggets. And it just turned into this like completely different game. And I think there was one moment where like we were talking about rules earlier. They were like, you could rob other players, and there's like there's implications to like your standing on the morale. Not, I keep wanting to say morale, but it's more like alignment on your alignment track and things like that. They're like, well, it's really not worth it to like defend yourself when you're being robbed. You should just let them rob you, and like you'll like preserve victory points or whatever the case was. It was just like immensely frustrating. Where like just getting back to your original point was like you want to engage with the game in the way that it's meant to be played. Kind of like looking for loopholes and like doing these weird sort of like meta strategies. It's just not fun.
This leads right into my second one that I had here, which we probably covered most of it, but this is optimizing the fun out of the game.
Yeah,
like just there's some games that are they're meant to be a little more enjoyable. I understand if you want to play your Lacerda Euro, I'm giving Lacerda a hard time in this episode.
You
or Gricklaw, if you want to do that.
I like your Gricklaw.
Optimize the hell out of that. Like enjoy it.
It's meant for it. Yeah.
But there's some games that you don't optimize the fun out. Like Western Legends. Now I had on here once again Tokyo Highway. I'm just mentioning because I pulled that one out as the start of the night. I was like, this will be like a 30-45 minute little intro game or whatever. I think it took us like an hour and a half, 2 hours to play that game. But like we have a couple of players that were just like always saying, if I put a car here, I'll be able to do this. Oh, maybe I can fit my bridge over here. And so like just place your car. Like we're playing with popsicle sticks. What are you thinking about? Like just take your turn. Same thing with Thunder Road Vendetta. This is one where it's just like crashing cars with each other. And I played this one once with a group of 4 players where a couple of the players at the table were constantly trying to optimize the moves. They're like, maybe if I optimize this action. I'm just like, this is a game about crashing cars. Sure, it's a race game, but just crash cars. Like, just take your turn, please.
Yeah.
And then this also happens with co-ops. I feel like through Death May Die, the actions are pretty simple. It's like move and attack. That's your choices. And a player can just get stuck and like, should I move over here and attack or should I move over here and attack? I'm like, shoot, just do one.
Almost feels like a separate thing. It's just like when you play co-op games, and it's almost like people complain about quarterbacking a lot in co-op games. Like one, like I don't know, like Chance maybe has played this Spirit Island more than anyone else, and is like telling other people what they should do optimally. But yeah, also just like wanting to like check your moves with a more senior player, somebody who's played. Like if Chance has played Spirit Island more than me, and I'm like constantly asking like, what do you think about this move? What do you think about this? It's like Spirit Island is almost a weird example because it's so like you're so focused on what you're doing that it's almost like you can't pay attention to what other people are doing in quarterback. But I'd say it's almost what you're describing to me is almost like the inverse of quarterbacking, and that's like asking someone to
constantly for a quarterback validation.
Yeah,
so it's the right game.
I don't know.
All these things are just leading to slowing down the game, slowing down the experience, like just making the game drag when it should be a little more snappy.
Yeah.
Thunder Road Vendetta is probably the best example of that one. It's you're rolling dice, you're choosing one die and moving your car,
crash into somebody else. Yeah.
And I've had players do things where they're so afraid of those hazard tiles. They're like, if I move this way,
I can move one space.
If I move this way, it'll have. Yeah, it's just it's like, come on, people, move your car, please. Okay, so that's gonna do it for that one. I think we both have experienced this next one. This is getting upset at luck. Have you noticed anyone get upset at luck before?
Yeah, I think like I think this comes back to something we've kind of talked about, and that's just like different styles of games where like some games are more chaotic by nature and you're rolling a lot of dice, you're drawing blindly from a deck and things like that. And just, people handle that differently. I think it is annoying. Like when we all realize, and I think it kind of comes back to like trying to win, like wanting to do well versus like just like putting your best foot forward. And yeah, like it's annoying when there's a lot of complaining over like dice rolls and stuff like that. We played Twilight Struggle earlier, and I think we both rolled pretty poorly. But yeah, just being upset at a game, it's something that's inherently like random.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you expect?
Yeah, like
Did you think you would always roll well or like always roll poorly or like someday? Like it's gonna balance itself out.
There's ways to approach
Engage with it on its own terms.
If you're having bad luck in a game, I appreciate the person that can roll at that and be like, holy crap, this is going terribly for me. Like, curse the gods for giving me this bad luck. Whereas that player that's just like, oh my God, I can't do anything. This game's dumb. Like, I'm having a terrible time. Like, why are we playing this? But like, yeah, there's two ways you can take that. And I enjoy the person that can just be like, oh man, yeah, this is going so badly. This is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. I'm just having a smile.
Acknowledge like that you're having a bad run or whatever without like souring the mood. Yeah.
Now, next one on here, I've had players that give up early. Now, I have to call this out because I've done this before. I've been in a game. We played Revive, and I do my best to not to indicate that I'm having like that experience of being like, I'm out of this game, guys. This is over for me.
Yeah.
And I understand it can be hard to manage this one because if you feel like you're out of a game, it's like hard to engage with that game still because you're there to engage with that game and be a little competitive. Sure, you're trying to have fun, but if you feel like you're out of that competition, it can be hard to still enjoy that game.
Yep.
But I definitely had players that make it very clear, and I do my best, like I said, not to make it clear that I feel like I'm out.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a downer for everybody else. But I have had players that are just like, I'm one turn behind you. There's no possible way of me catching up. Like, this game's kind of pointless now. Like, why am I even here? And I'm like, we'll find something to do.
I find it's good to set other goals for yourself. This is like as somebody who frequently loses games or like plays like heavy Euros or there's just like what the hell am I doing? Think about like other goals too. Like maybe I want to try to like do this interesting thing or like maybe I just don't want to be in. Maybe my goal for myself is that like I'm just not in last. We talked about Lightning Train on a previous episode. I was in like last place or like very close to it for most of the
last place by a lot.
Yeah, still last. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm not like going to win this thing. Like it definitely was. We had a runaway leader. Like I was just like, there's no chance I'm going to win this. But, you can still set other goals for yourself and just be like, find something positive in it where you're not just like being kind of like a Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
On the experience for others. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I land there. And like like sometimes we were playing Twilight Struggle earlier. I was down like the victory. It's a tug of war, so the victory point tracker was like 7 or 8 points in Chance's favor, and I definitely had the thought like, oh, this might fall flat. Like I might not be able to come back from this. And I ended up winning.
And
you end up that's another thing. Is just like don't rule out the possibility of coming back. We have a friend. Who we play with quite a bit, who like frequently like comes from behind, like he's not doing well early on, and then ends up winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
So like have some faith in yourself. Sometimes. So
this comes back
to you can have a comeback.
This comes back to it. I think there's another comment later on, which sometimes when a player complains, it creates this disincentive for other players to do anything to impair them
or target them at all.
We don't want to target them, so they are kind of left alone to do their own thing, which kind of gives them that incentive that benefit of just kind of being able to jump in the
not being attacked.
Yeah, so like when you have that complaint, it's just like, especially when I'm the rules teacher and I have somebody complaining on a table, I'm doing my best to give them a good experience. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna leave you alone. You do your thing, whatever. Like it's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is like this weird effect where you decide just like I don't want to pile on once I was like not having a good time, and then they win.
All right, so next one I actually have one for the rules explainer. I have a complaint for the rules explainer.
Okay.
This one is going to be giving too many strategy tips when teaching the rules, and just not being cognizant of the time you're taking to teach the rules.
Sure.
So I feel like in game rules teaching is really hard. So anyone that's teaching rules, like I said, give them a lot of grace. But this one is for those people explaining the rules, just so you have an idea of what can kind of get your players a little more engaged. I find that rules explaining is a learned skill. You just got to do it more. You got to experience it. You have to play the game and experience what the result of that game was, because I found that if I explain the rules differently, games land differently. So like that's a super important part. But and there's a fine balance between like giving enough strategy tips so people understand how the scoring works and stuff. I want to like Molly House. Molly House is just strange, and I need to explain how things are connected and give a little bit of strategy with that game. But I've had some rules explanations that go on, like we play a 30-minute game and the rules explanation is 30 minutes because they're telling me like, oh, if you do this, you get this and this and this.
Yeah.
I'm like, just let me find that out during the game.
Sure.
And then I just become completely disconnected. I'm just like, oh, just make this end. Like, please just get the game on the table. I want it to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one. I think like there's like a balance to be struck, and it depends on what kind of game you're playing. Like if I'm playing Thieves Market, like I probably don't need to sprinkle in a lot of strategy advice. But when we played Twilight Struggle, I felt, we were talking today, and I thought like, oh, there's like one thing or two things that might be important to call out. Like, hey, like the space race is a great way to burn like a bad event card. That's like, to me, like a strategy it doesn't take a lot of time and it's actually really useful. But yeah, like when you're going on and on about like
just random stuff,
just like random stuff that's not going to, like like we said earlier, the first time you play a game, it's not going to be optimal anyway. So like give people some space to kind of like learn. And this might even be bridging into it. You might have this one on your list, but just like wanting to be told like the optimal strategy up front is just like, it's tough, like especially if it's your first time playing or your first time teaching the game. You're like, hey, I don't know like the kind of strategies you should follow or what you should do. I think half the fun is just figuring that out. Like, I don't want to play like a heavy Euro game and have somebody tell me like what I should be doing on each turn. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah.
I have played some. I guess I paused because there have been some games where I've been like, I've played a route where you kind of have like a couple of turns like dictated to you like through a walkthrough, which I actually found really useful because it shows you what you can and can't do. So that's more of, to me, just like a teaching thing than anything. I don't expect people or want to help people like identify like optimal strategies when I'm teaching a game for the first time.
And these ones I don't have a lot to say on, so they're going to be pretty quick. These are going to be players that do their entire turn on their head and just show you the conclusion. I had this where the player just does the final action, and it's just, wait, what'd you do? And like we have to roll things back. They got to be, oh, well, you didn't understand that. I'm like, no, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, that's just annoying, right? Like,
it is annoying, yeah, and I've done that before. Like when I think I'm like in a sort of like the flow state, but yeah, no, I do find it. I think you should, especially when you're learning a game and like not everybody knows it. Like I think it's really useful to just like narrate your turn and talk about what you're doing. Not just for the like for a few reasons. Like I think it's nice to just like have everybody on the same page.
Yep.
I think it can be useful for like teaching and just like understanding what you can and can't do. And also if you like mess up, which people do all the time. Like, we just played games and like made mistakes. And then like somebody could tell you like, oh, you shouldn't have been able to like do that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's good.
Yep. And these next two go together. This is going to be this is very minor ones. Players not declaring when they're done, or players not knowing when their turn is.
Oh, that really annoys me. Oh yeah.
These are, like I said, these are smaller ones, but they really irk me because they slow down the game so much. And like I'm just like, sometimes I have to do that question like, wait, whose turn? I know whose turn it is, but I say, wait, whose turn is it? Just to like snap that person out of their trance or whatever they're in.
Yeah.
Like, especially in these Euro games when people have multiple actions and they don't declare when they're done. I'm like, just say you're done. Like, so the game can move on. Just be like, I'm done. Next person, go. Like,
one of my least favorite combos from this list is like the AP plus not staying your done. That's a terrible combo when you like take forever to take your turn and then you also
yeah.
And then it's like, are you done? Yeah. You have to like ask. Yeah, that's a funny combo, but also a terrible one.
Right? It just drags. It just makes
it slows things down.
And when you're the person teaching, and I feel like you've been in that situation, you've probably been in this situation, and you have to kind of manage it. Yeah. You have to be like, hey, it's your turn. Hey, you're done, right? Okay, it's your turn. And just that management, just...
It is tough when you're teaching. You kind of feel responsible for everyone having fun and like figuring out, like sort of managing the entire game from that point onward, even though it's not really like totally in your hands. But yeah.
This other one just really irks me too is solving the game on a first play. So I've had this experience a couple times, but El Grande, where the players just like, oh, you just got to get more cubes out. Whoever has the most cubes wins. I'm like, I think you kind of ignored like the entire gameplay of El Grande, and you solved it without giving it any credit for what it does. And then same thing with another experience with I apologize to this person ever listen to this podcast because they're the only person that's played Oathsworn with me. But we got into a scenario of Oathsworn, and he was just like, I've done the math. Like we have to do 3 damage per turn to be able to get this one to win. That's impossible to do in this game. So I don't see how we win this scenario. And I was just kind of like, okay, should we play it? Then we got to the end and we won it. And it was like, why did you give the designer some credit? Like, experience this before you jump to that conclusion. And
sorry, guys.
No, I was just gonna say they kind of just ruin that experience. Like they go into it with the idea stuck in their head that it's gonna go out one way, and then the game, it goes that way because that's the way they believe it goes. So
I've had this happen with a few games. I think El Grande was one. I think Nar is one where someone was like, "Oh, all you need to do is advance on like the reputation track. Like that's all this game really is." And it's just kind of like, whether they're right or wrong is almost irrelevant.
It just ladles that game, and you're like excited to play it and introduce it. They just kind of take that game and tear it down. And
it's just a matter of like doing this or that, and it's like, well, that's not fun. I think it comes back to like the magic circle idea where we're all agreeing to like spend our free time to like have this positive experience or like do something fun, compete. And then you kind of like break out of it with like, all you're really doing is rolling dice.
This one ties right back into like trying to find loopholes or breaking the game, right?
Yeah.
So, anything else on that one?
I don't think so. No.
Next one, unsolicited advice. I feel like this never goes well. Someone be like, "Oh, you could have done this, and you could have done this better." Now, I will mention that I am a culprit in this. Sometimes I have given like today during Twilight Struggle. Josh made a move where he took control of this area. And I was like, "Oh, you could have taken control of this one area over here."
Oh yeah,
instead of that area, and it was like a minor one. I had worse ones though, where I feel like this always goes very poorly for a player that's having a bad time, and they're given unsolicited advice that player has an even worse time. So I just feel like it's always best if you think you have a better idea for the move, or you see a better idea, or you're like, well, because you're doing non-optimal moves, you're kind of impacting my gameplay, and like I'm not going to win because you're now letting someone else to get away with their victory. Just keep it to yourself. Just learn to keep that inside, and
yeah, I'd agree with this one. I don't like being told like. I personally, and I'm not talking about what like earlier, I didn't mind that when we were playing Twilight Struggle, but I don't like being told like what I should have done or what the optimal thing is. I also really don't like in like team-based games when you have a teammate who like implies, oh, it should be obvious what you should do, or like your next move should be obvious to you, or you should do that. I don't like quarterbacking, and I feel like there's like an air of superiority to it sometimes where it's just like annoying, and it's really not fun for me. And I probably do my fair share of like losing in Euros and like longer games and stuff like that. And I don't like when I'm like told what to do.
Yeah.
It's one thing if it's like something super obvious and like if somebody's helping you like learn the rules or something like that, like that could be nice. I've had like Chance and I have played enough 2-player games where like once in a while I'll be like, like I'll win on the next turn if like this happens, which I feel like I actually don't mind. Like I think that's, if you're playing in like a friendly environment, it's your first few times playing, like you shouldn't feel obligated to do that for the other person. But I feel like that actually is like friendly.
I don't like winning on a gotcha. Like
gotcha. Oh, by the way, like my asymmetric player thing says like I win if I do that. Yeah. But just like straight up telling people what to do and like quarterbacking, being a bad teammate in games, or like I'm probably like making this a bigger topic than we intended, but like, if you're playing like Bomb Busters or like Take Time, you're playing like hidden information games and people are implying like what you should or shouldn't do. It just like takes the fun out of it for me. Like allow people, like if people want to play like aren't optimal, like it's part of the fun. Everybody's getting better the more they play.
Then our The last ones here, I got being a distractor. Just telling a long story is not associated with the game. Just kind of distracting things, or making ill-timed jokes about the gameplay and maybe confusing the player that it's their turn. I've had that happen where it just kind of like takes that player's like, wait, what do you mean? Or making a rules joke, and they're like, wait, can I do that? And it's like, no, you can't do that. They're just making a joke. Like, just move on.
Yeah.
So just being a distractor is kind of annoying.
It's hard, right? Because board games are like inherently social, but I feel like it is like you have to kind of feel it out. Like, when is the right time to like launch into your story, or like
Some games are better for that. Like if you're just hanging out at the table, having a good time. Yeah.
read the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not.
I got the dice chucker. Some players. I like people that are enthusiastic about games, but every now and again, there's someone that just doesn't have the awareness, and they just like throw the dice, knocking over other components. And I've had a player do this, and they've done it multiple times. And they still threw their dice the same way. I'm like, can you like keep it a little more contained?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
I agree with that one, and I would extend it to just like not being like, I don't know, being like, what's the word I'm looking for? Being a good caretaker of like other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you're playing games, oftentimes you're playing with other people. Like it's like, I don't know, if we're playing chances.
Respectful of components.
Respectful of other people's like things, Like board games are expensive, if we're playing like chances. Here's one. I know I'm a terrible card shuffler. I don't like to like shuffle. Like I'll shuffle my cards, but I don't like to like. I will not riffle shuffle like someone else's cards because I'm so bad at it. I'll bend them or like cause damage. And so just like, if we're playing someone else's game, I'll be like, hey, do you want to why don't you shuffle? I'm terrible at this. Or chucking people's stuff around the table, like being rude. Like if people have minis and stuff, like just like flinging them around. I don't know. I think just being like respectful of other people's property is kind of like a not being respectful is kind of a pet peeve of mine with board games as well. It's just like basic. Decent, being decent, being respectful, like, show the same courtesy you would want people to show to like your games. So yeah, that's a good one. I was actually going to add that in. I didn't know if you were going to talk about that, but yeah.
And then last one I have on my list is going to be the chaos player. So I enjoy chaotic games, but there are some times when a player, they disconnect from the victory condition of the game. They just say, I'm going to cause chaos just for chaos' sake. Yep. Or I'm going to like enable another person to win or enable another person to lose.
Like king making kind of thing.
It kind of falls in that. Yeah. I feel like king making has different like tiers, and this one is just they turn the game into a team game. Like they have said, oh, I don't want you to win the game, so now I'm just doing everything to stop you from winning, and I'm letting anyone else win. So they kind of turn it into this weird team dynamic. They're no longer engaged with the victory condition of the game. They're just like trying to just cause chaos.
Yeah. Attacking like specific players on purpose without like it.
And that ruins that magic circle, right? Like we talked about. So
yeah, I think that's another good one.
Oh, do you have? So I have some just final closing comments that I'm going to end the episode with. But before we do that, do you have any other ones that you want to add that you think I might have missed? I feel like it's pretty comprehensive.
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of grievances aired, but it's like everybody plays. I feel like the board game hobby is like pretty friendly and like accepting, and it's just everybody wants to be like the best board gamer you could be.
Yeah. And these are all just.
I periodically will like look up like bad board gaming behaviors. I'm like, hey, do I do any of these things? Yeah. And it's like sometimes the answer is yes. So it's nice to like kind of be a little bit self-aware and just like think about like what you do that other people might not love. And
So then let's just end this on a more positive note. And I'm just going to say, so some good behaviors that I wrote down, a short list here was, plan ahead. Like just be ready for your turn. Like don't wait for your turn to plan things out. Be aware of what's going on. Pay attention. So this is the next point. It's stay engaged with the game. Just try to stay off your phone. I pulled out my phone in games before. Not the best behavior to do, but stay engaged with the game and that helps out with the person that brought the game to the table. They want you to have a good experience. So be nice to that person. Next up, respect the game. We talked about this with dice chucking. And then lastly here is going to be thank your rules explainer. The person, So Very Wrong About Games, that podcast, they close it out all the time with thank your rules explainer. They put in the effort to learn that game. They put in multiple hours probably learning that game, bringing it to you to have hopefully give you a good experience. So all of those there. And then the final call here is just remember to play to win, but the goal, you don't need to win a game. Yeah. So remember that you're there generally to have fun, unless you're in the competitive scene, which, you know, that's a whole different
That's
story.
its own thing.
If you're a casual board gamer, it's like, are you there to win or are you there to have fun? If you're there to win, think about it. If you're playing with a group, let's say you're playing 4-player board games and you're playing with relatively equals, you're only going to win like 25% of the time if you're completely equal. That means that you're only going to have a good time 25% of the time. Why are you doing that? Like, so remember that you're there to have fun with the other people and stop putting so much value into that victory condition, right? Anything else you want to close out this episode with?
Yeah, no, I think those are good points. I think it's great to, like, you know, one thing, one of our friends who we play with quite a bit, he always says thanks for teaching, and yeah, that really stuck with me. That was like a behavior I think I kind of copied.
Yeah, even if you have a bad time at the game, I feel it's important to
Thanks for taking the time, you know, to learn it, to bring it to the table, to put yourself out there, to teach it, to answer all the questions. Like, I think that's great. And yeah, just, you know, we've talked a couple times about like the idea of the magic circle. I think it's important to just, like, you know, put your best foot forward and have a good time. Yeah, be there to have fun, like you said.
Yep. And if
Like, you're not going to win all the time. Yeah, that's fine. You know.
Even if you're not going to enjoy the game, but if you volunteer to participate in it, you are in that magic circle, and just, you know, tough it out, have a good time with those people, and then at the end of the game, you could be like, yeah, not my game.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, after the fact, like, being like, hey, you know, it's not really for me, or like there are
totally fine.
There are very valid gripes to have with games, and that's totally fair. But being a good player and a good, like, I don't know, like a good steward of the hobby, I think is really important.
Agreed. Okay, well, that was a little different than usual. I was happy to talk about it, though. I love complaining about things.
So it's fun to complain.
Yeah, one of my favorite hobbies. That my wife does not enjoy it as much, but you know. So thank you for listening to our podcast. Once again, this is Shelf to Table with your host Chance and Josh here, and we'll be coming back to you sometime in the future. We have no schedule at this point, but
we do not.
Yeah,
not the regular one.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Thanks all.